All right, let's go to Monday Night Football. We got the Bears going to Minnesota to take on the Vikings. Vikings favored by 3.5. The total 44. Luck rankings. The Bears have been pretty unlucky. They are the fourth most unlucky team, and the Vikings have been the 12th luckiest. So a little bit of a gap here, but I don't know. Any thoughts on this game? You also have a -4.5 for the luck total, which is third lowest. So the luck rankings are pointing to Chicago and the under.
Yeah, the under is interesting. I went that way with the Bears Lions under last week, and it didn't pan out. I still think the Bears defense is slightly underrated. The Vikings, they're kind of interesting because they have a brand new quarterback now and Josh Dobbs, and I really like how the offense looks with him under center and his ability to avoid pressure and turn it into a 10-yard run. So after last week, I do not want to invest in a Bears under or kind of fade Josh Dobbs at all. So we're showing that this has a rating of -4.5 to the under, but I will not be betting on this under. How about you?
Nah, yeah. If I was betting any side, I'd probably. I mean, actually, no, I would think about the under because I think I think you mentioned the Bears defense being underrated. The Vikings defense is underrated. Sure. I mean, Brian Flores took a defense that was bottom 6 in pretty much every metric across the board last year. This is one of the top defenses in the league now. Like this defense is consistently good. They're blitzing. They're mixing up their looks. So both defenses underrated. This might be the week to go at the under, because last week, I mean, anytime you're taking a Lions indoor under, I mean, that's just risky because, like you saw, like Lions, even when they get down, they could just score so easily. So this week, little different of a environment. So I don't hate the under. Kind of lead Minnesota though over Chicago, even though Minnesota's been a little luckier. I still lean Minnesota here. I think Minnesota is kind of they're just undervalued by the market each and every week. Dobbs has been undervalued for fantasy. Yep. So it's that's how I'd kind of attack that one. But who do you like in the captain spot?
I'm going DJ Moore here. He gets a massive boost with Justin Fields back. And if you recall, back in week 10, I said, he'd be my captain if Justin Fields returns. Instead, it was, Tyson Bagent under center again. And on Green Dot Daily, my 3 or 4 bets were all tailored to fade Bagent and Moore in that situation. So that just goes to show how big of a discrepancy I think there is when Fields is under center versus Bagent. But Moore, again, he had a massive game with Fields under center last week, 7 catches for 96 yards and a touchdown. So that's now 4 straight games with at least 100 yards and or a touchdown with Fields under center. So Fields, you mentioned that he's willing to throw the ball downfield to Moore specifically. So it just unlocks his ceiling. So in fantasy, he's my wide receiver 12 to open the week. So in this spot, I definitely like going with DJ Moore in the captain slot.
Yeah, I like Moore. Like Justin Fields as well. I think he's kind of the guy where, even if Moore doesn't hit for some reason, Fields, you still have an avenue for Fields to hit because of the rushing ability. He ran 8 times for 46 yards, despite playing just 53% of the snaps against the Vikings in week 5. And, they're going to throw a lot of looks at him. They're going to blitz him and, probably confuse him a ton. So I think he is going to have to take off a ton, but that works out great for fantasy. So like Justin Fields in the captain spot, and they're not, if Justin Jefferson doesn't return, which it looks like he's going to sit another week, it's not a ton of options really in terms of the captains. But I mean, I think you have to consider both Viking running backs too. And it's not even a great matchup for them, but Ty Chandler and Alexander Madison both, could see 15 plus touches, or at least one of them probably will. And, in a game like this, there's, if Moore doesn't hit and Fields has like an okay game, but doesn't run in a touchdown, it's going to be wide open. I mean, it could be another Josh Dobbs, it could be Hawkinson, it could be Addison. So there's no like, there's no slam dunk here. So this is one where I'm probably going to have a lot of different configurations because I think it's a little more wide open than most slates, where some slates you just see like, okay, there's like a pretty good chance like Tyreek Hill is going to be like a top 2 scorer on this slate, where here it's Fields and Moore, I think, are the projected highest scorers, along with I guess it would be Hockenson. Well, no, I guess it would be Dobbs and then Hockenson and then Addison, or maybe Addison and then Hockenson, but no one really, there's no slam dunk is my point. So I like Fields, but don't mind mixing it up with all the guys I just mentioned. What do you think for value?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Jordan Addison here, just assuming Jefferson's out again, which I think is a fair assumption right now. Just a good spot to potentially buy low on Addison. He hasn't really done too much the past couple weeks with Dobbs under center. And, this is a matchup where the Bears certainly have a pass funnel defense. They rank 27th in DVOA against the pass, 11th against the run. The chemistry between Addison and Dobbs will only get better. I think Addison's a really sharp route runner. So maybe having some more time with Dobbs, get them more on the same page. And he hasn't scored a touchdown in 3 games. To be honest, he was due for some touchdown regression. But he's always a good bet on talent. So he has that big playability, could find the end zone again here. And like you mentioned, this slate, there's a bunch of options for the captain slot. Addison is certainly one of the people on my short list as well. But just in terms of just overall value, he's got to be one of my favorite plays here.
Yeah, and he did score against Chicago. Didn't have many yards, but I think it was only 28 yards, but he did score against Chicago in the first meeting. I'm going to go with Ty Chandler here. I don't think he is, in terms of a projection, like the best value, but I think he's the best value when you take into account, projected rostership, because there's so many guys that I think Chandler he still was behind Madison in terms of snaps. He might not see as much ownership as he should, but there's a chance he could. I mean, we said this with Akers and it didn't happen, but there is a chance he could overtake Madison at any given time. Last week he had 14 touches for 110 scrimmage yards. So, he outproduced Madison on fewer touches, 4 catches for 37 yards last game out of the backfield. And Chicago's allowing the most receiving yards to running backs. So Chandler has been playing more on pass snaps and, not blocking. I don't think blocking is his strength. So when he's in the game on pass snaps, it is to, run a route and be a check down option for Josh Dobbs. So I think the matchup makes it pretty interesting for Chandler here. But yeah, I mean, you got so many other guys like Hockenson, Addison, Cole Kmet, DJ Moore, both quarterbacks. So, and then Madison is technically the starter. Then you got, you might have Khalil Herbert if Foreman's out back in the lead role. So many options that I think Chandler still might get a little lost in the mix, even though he's coming off a big game in prime time. So I like him for mid-range value play.
Yeah, I think he's sneaky. And I was watching that game from the context of having his over on his longest run. And of course it came on the punt play. I think they can get better just how they use him in the offense. He's a speedster. He's like lightning to Madison's thunder. And they were giving him Madison plays, running him up the gut, just terrible play calling. And I think they could, like, Dobbs is a threat to run. They could leverage that and get Chandler to the outside, and he could pop up a big run. Hopefully they can figure something out. But I just didn't like the running scheme they had him in. They were just giving him Madison plays, but he has a ton of upside. He is one of the fastest running backs in the league, I think. So if he gets space to run, he could definitely break a big one. So he doesn't even need that many touches, honestly, to have a big game. So I do like him here as well.
What about for dart throws?
I'm going with Equimanius St. Brown here. And to be honest, the most likely outcome is 1 catch for 12 yards and no touchdowns. But, he's seen some pretty solid usage since his return 2 weeks ago, running right around a 35 to 40% routes run rate. He's been eating into Tyler Scott and even Darnell Mooney's usage. This is more of an indictment for Mooney than anything. So it's kind of a 3-way committee behind DJ Moore right now. And, St. Brown's the kind of guy where you just want to sprinkle him in on the 1-game slate. There's a chance he gets a cheap touchdown here or maybe just catches a few passes, which for this slate would be more than enough. So I like him, but this is a slate where you probably don't have to go too cheap on too many guys. So I would just have a few lineups with him, but he's a guy that sticks out as somebody that might be a little under rostered here.
Yeah, definitely. Because I'm going with Tyler Scott, who him and you mentioned it, they're pretty much splitting that number 3 role, both running around about 35-40% of the time, as you said. But I did notice something interesting with Scott over the last 4 games in particular. He's being used almost exclusively as a deep threat now. Mm-hmm. His average depth of target over his last 4 games is just under 20 yards, and it's been at least 15 in each of those games. Obviously, remember that near miss at the end of that Lions game last week that could have probably iced it for Chicago. So, at some point, him and Fields are going to connect on one of those. And I always love when you have like a cheap, big play threat, because not only is that going to get you points that a lot of people aren't going to have access to because those guys are dart throws, so they're all going to be pretty low rostered compared to studs. But also, if you have, let's say, a 70-yard pass play, that takes away, 5 catches and 70 yards if they were to drive down the field, the other way and do it. Or, it takes away some rushing attempts. So I like the leverage it gives you to have a guy like Tyler Scott, who hasn't really connected on one yet, but is seeing those deep targets and now has a quarterback back, behind center that can actually connect on those. Because I think a couple of those games were with Bajent where he was being used as a deep threat. Yep. And that's, like you said, it's not really optimal for a receiver. So Tyler Scott for me. All right.
Yeah, that's I think Justin Fields returning helps him. Tyson Bagent, I can confirm, has the lowest ADOT on both PFF and Next Gen Stats right now.
Oh, okay.
So both sites they have different numbers, but both agree that he has the lowest depth of target on the season from qualified quarterbacks. So yeah, Tyler Scott's going to benefit from Justin Fields being back.
Yeah, and maybe he'll catch a pass one day.
One day.
One day. But that's going to do it for us here. Be sure to check out the full list of luck rankings over on actionnetwork.com, where you can also find all of our NFL fantasy and betting content. Our full player projections episode is out right now on the Action Network podcast channel. Our fantasy preview episode is right here on this channel. That's where we preview the Thanksgiving slate and the main slate. Don't forget to join the Action Network Discord as well. Again, link in the episode description. You can find Sean on X at @_oddsmaker. I'm at Chris Raybon. We're at those same handles on the free award-winning Action Network app. Happy Thanksgiving. Let's get this shmoney. Let's give it to.